There's a kind of loneliness that only comes to those who live a very long time. It isn't the loneliness of a young man in an empty room. It's something quieter, and in a strange way, something almost peaceful. It's the loneliness of a man who has outlived nearly everyone he ever knew, and who wakes up each morning anyway, gets in his car, drives to the market, cooks his own meal, and carries on. Today, I want to tell you the story of a man we'll call Bill. He's 93 years old. He lives alone in a quiet village in Thailand, a country he first set foot in back in 1967, nearly 60 years ago. His friends, as he puts it plainly, are all gone now. And yet, sitting there at 93, he'll tell you something that might just surprise you. He doesn't feel cheated. He doesn't have any regrets. This is a story about a long life, a life fuller than most men could dream of. And it's a story about what a man learns after 9 decades on this earth. So stick around, because there's a great deal of wisdom in a man like Bill. Bill's life did not begin quietly. Before he ever came to Thailand, he was a United States Army Green Beret. He'd served in Vietnam. He'd been through the Navy's underwater training schools, and for 8 long years he became an instructor for the Green Berets, passing on what he knew to the men who came after him. Before all of that, he'd already spent 4 years in the Navy. This was a man forged in discipline, in hard training, in service. He first came to Thailand in the late 1960s, but the Army wasn't done with him yet. Back then, they wanted him to go to Turkey, and so they sent him to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, for a full year to learn Turkish. And here's the first glimpse of the kind of man Bill is. He didn't just learn Turkish. On the side, quietly, he bootlegged the Thai language too. Because he already spoke some Thai, the Thai instructors at the school welcomed him warmly, even held him up in front of their students as an example of how to speak it properly. By the time that Turkish school was finished, Bill had come out of it speaking and even writing Thai far better than when he went in. And when the school was over, as he says, so was he. He got out of the Army, and he came back to Thailand for good. What waited for him here was a whole new life. A friend of his, an engineer with the big oil company Caltex in Bangkok, hired Bill to be his foreman, to build a grease plant. Bill was a capable man. He could read, he could write, he could make AutoCAD drawings without any trouble at all, and he loved the work. So he became the foreman, and together they built that grease plant for Caltex Bangkok. And it's from that job that one of the great treasures of Bill's life came. His boss had a car, brand new, that had belonged to his daughter back in 1991. And one day the man simply told Bill, "It's yours," as partial payment for the work. Bill took it brand new. It was the last model of its kind brought in from Japan. The very next year they stopped bringing them. This car, Bill will tell you, has excellent steel. It's been hit by a motorcycle over the years, sure, but it's still in good shape. And the mileage? Nearly 500,000 kilometers on it. 463,000 and counting. He'll have you listen to the engine, proud as anything, because it doesn't make that cheap clacking sound of vehicles today. And yes, at 93, he still drives it himself whenever he needs it. Now, getting to stay in Thailand permanently back in those days was no small thing. Bill had what's called a diplomatic passport. The Green Berets were given those. And he went to Thai immigration, the big office, and as he puts it, he threw himself on their mercy. But he had one thing most foreigners didn't. He could already speak Thai. And back in those days, that was rare, and the officials loved it. They told him they would do everything they possibly could to help him get a resident visa. Here's where the story tells you something beautiful about how Bill moved through the world. In those days, everywhere a foreigner went, you paid a little on the side. Tea money, they called it, the small, unofficial payments that greased the wheels. Bill expected to do the same, but everywhere he went, they wouldn't take it. They told him, "You're a good guy, we like you, you don't pay nothing." His resident visa ended up costing him only the basic paperwork and stamps, 7,500 baht. And when he finally went to Bangkok to pick it up, everyone congratulated him, genuinely happy for him. The one man he'd paid a large commission to even gave him half his money back. It worked out, Bill says, from being in the right place and from keeping his mouth shut, being a quiet, obedient, gentle person who made no noise. They loved that. Keep that phrase in your mind because it comes back at the very end of his story as one of the great secrets of his long life. Let's talk about what this part of Thailand was like when Bill arrived, because it's almost impossible to imagine now. Pattaya back then was dirt roads. The beach side was a dirt road. There were only 2 hotels in the whole place. The beach had horses on it. They gave horse rides to the Bangkok folk who came down on the weekends. There was nothing much on the beach at all except the palm trees and a Thai boathouse halfway along where the king would sail out from when he came to the area. Bill reckons there weren't many more than 800 people in the whole of Pattaya back then. 800. Think about that the next time you see the neon and the crowds of that city today. There wasn't even a place for Bill in Pattaya itself at first, so he set up nearby in Nak Lua. He and his Thai girlfriend started small. She opened a coffee shop, and he opened a little shop supplying dive gear to the people who came down from Bangkok. And this is where Bill's true calling emerged. He was a military diver and a fine one. In those early days, he knew all the Thai dive people. He was good friends with the commander. They loaned him equipment so he could take on dive jobs, and with the money from those jobs, he slowly bought his own gear. That little shop grew into a real dive shop in Nak Lua, and then a bigger one right on the beach, a building that Bill says still stands there today. He taught scuba diving for the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. He did commercial dive work, and gradually he became quite famous for his diving. Contracts came and went, and life went well. He was busy. He didn't have to do anything else. For a man who'd started with nothing but skill and a quiet, steady manner, he'd built a whole world for himself under the warm waters of Thailand. But no long life is without its sorrows, and Bill's is no exception. He married once here to a woman we'll call Pen. They had a daughter nicknamed Cherry, who's now grown with a family of her own, 2 children. But the marriage didn't last. His wife, he says, was young, always troubled by one thing or another, always something that couldn't be done or hadn't been done. Eventually, he simply had to let her go. And when he did, he took on the responsibility of raising their daughter entirely by himself. He put her through school. He put her through the big Catholic convent school. A former Green Beret and famous diver, raising his little girl alone. There's a quiet heroism in that most people would never think to notice. Bill bought a home here in 2002 in the proper way. He was here legally, he had a job, he had references, he met every requirement the bank set. The only thing they couldn't do was put the house in his name because he was a foreigner, and that's illegal in Thailand. So it went in his wife's name. He paid that home off over 10 years, but when it eventually came time for it to be sold, the deal went sour on him. She spoiled it, he says, crimped the arrangement and took most of what there was. She did give him some money, To be fair, she paid off his cancer surgery. He'd had brain surgery and was some 300,000 baht in debt over it, paying it down month by month. She cleared that and left him 200,000 baht in the bank. And that, at 93, is roughly where he stands. So how does a man of 93 live, out here, largely on his own? His late wife's brother's wife lives nearby, and she comes over once a week to clean the house. But beyond that, Bill needs no help, and he'll tell you so with a certain pride. He does it all himself. He gets in the car and goes shopping. He rides his motorcycle to the market or drives to Foodland or Lotus, wherever he needs. He buys his own food. He does his own cooking. He takes care of himself. This is a man who has had major surgery on both his body and his head, and it's kept him going. In fact, just the day before this conversation, he'd gone to give a blood test. The doctor had spotted a rising cancer marker, though he could see no actual cancer. Bill's response to that is telling. He's not going to let them cut into his body anymore. If he needs treatment, he'll take medication or radiation. But at 93, he's made his peace with how he wants to handle these things, on his own terms. At this age, Bill says, his friends are all gone, but he's not entirely without family in the world. He has a sister, Dorothy Fay, living in Colorado and doing quite well, herself in her 90s. And here the story takes a turn that's almost impossible not to smile at. His sister recently became friends with one of Bill's very first girlfriends, a young Catholic girl he'd known back in the U.S. in Colorado, a woman we'll call Peggy. Bill left Peggy back in 1962, and only this year, more than 60 years later, he's talking to her again. She's 85 now, and Bill will tell you, with a twinkle you can practically hear, that she still loves him like she did all those years ago. She went on to marry, to have a family, to sail on a big boat with her husband, to live a good life, and Bill is genuinely happy for her. But he's still her love, he says. All they ever had was their interlude, all those decades ago. And now, in the twilight of both their lives, they found each other's voices again. Would he ever go back? No. There's nothing back there for him anymore, he says, except his sister and Peggy. And Peggy has her own life, her family, her children. His daughter is here in Thailand, and she could care for him just as well as anyone back in America could. This is home. This has been home for nearly 60 years. Now, people always want to know the secret. How does a man reach 93? Still driving, still cooking, still sharp. So let's talk about it honestly, because Bill does. He was a smoker. From the age of 17 all the way to 67, a pack a day for more years than he can count. He enjoyed his beer, too, like most young men in the military, though he never touched hard whiskey in those days and never drank to excess. What changed him was a trip back to the U.S. in the early 2000s. He passed through Hong Kong, landed in America, went to Denver, and he got sick, really badly sick. Terrible pain, struggling to breathe. It turned out he'd caught SARS, and as he lay there in that pain, fighting for each breath, one thought kept circling in his mind. If I survive this, I have to quit smoking. He survived, and in 2002, he quit smoking cold turkey. Not only that, when he came back to Thailand, he went and talked to all his friends who smoked and convinced a good many of them to stop too. He believes to this day that quitting smoking is the single reason he's still here. A man who smoked for 50 years, who then turned around and used his own brush with death to pull his friends back from the same edge. He didn't give up everything, mind you. He still has one drink a day, a single shot of whiskey, not a glass. And there's a lovely little story even in that. He's got some real old Thai whiskey, a brand called Sang Similan that Sangsum once made for the European export market and stopped producing long ago. 25 years old, this bottle. Back in the early years, Bill told his buddy, who owns a local liquor store, how much he liked it and asked if he could get more. The friend went all the way to Bangkok to the distillery, and they said they'd quit making it, but there was still some in the warehouse. The catch was, if he wanted any, he had to buy all of it. So the man bought the lot. And he's been quietly supplying Bill ever since, for 15 years and more. Every evening at 6 o'clock, Bill pours a shot into a soft drink, sits down at his computer, does his email, and has his drink. A small, steady ritual at the end of each long day. But if you ask Bill what really gave him his long life, he doesn't point to the whiskey or even entirely to quitting smoking. He points to something else: people, friendship. When he lived in his old house, he says, this was perhaps the most important thing of all. He had good friends on every side, in front, behind, all around. They kept warm, happy, friendly relations, always laughing. There were children in the neighborhood who kept that same joyful atmosphere alive. And the doctors and everything he's read tell him this is what promotes longevity. He misses that from the old house, but he's found it again here with the local children who all like him. Every evening when they come out to play and make their happy noise, he makes sure they each get a little ice cream or a treat. People ask him, doesn't all that noise bother you? And Bill just says, I love it. So what has this man learned in 93 years on the earth? When you ask him what's most important, he doesn't hesitate. Never let your temper take control. Keep your temper under control at all times. You'll be more successful without it, he says. That's what he found. Just be your calm, jolly, conventional self. Look after your own comfort and stay steady. And loneliness? Loneliness, he says, simply doesn't exist for him. Bill is a Buddhist now, though he wasn't always. He was raised on Catholicism, on Lutheran and Baptist Sunday schools. But when he came to Thailand with the Green Berets, stationed in Lopburi, he became friends with a young, very well-educated Buddhist monk. They talked at length, and Bill liked what he heard, because it was, in his words, just common sense. Being good. You don't have to be a saint, you just have to be a good person. And there's a great deal, he says, behind that simple idea. Before he married his Thai wife, the monk and his future wife both told him he should enter the monkhood for a period first, as most Thai families want their sons to do before they begin their own lives. It's meant to give a man good guidance on how to live, almost like being born again. Bill said he would, but he had no sponsor. And that monk said simply, I will be your sponsor. So Bill entered the monkhood for a time, and he liked it very much. But here's the honest, clear-eyed part. Ask Bill if he believes he'll be born again when he dies, and he won't pretend to a faith he doesn't hold. No, he says, he doesn't believe anything like that. It might be possible, but he doesn't believe in anything concrete. His temple in Lopburi taught common sense, not doctrine, and that's exactly what he liked about it. And how does he feel about the end, now that it can't be so far off? He told the man interviewing him that he's aiming to live to 95 without any pain, and if there's no pain, he'll happily go further. His father went at 91. Everyone else in his family went well before that. So here he is, way out here, all by himself, at 93, with a few small aches and pains. A couple of months back, he had shingles, and at 93, he says, you really don't want to get shingles. When he sits and thinks about what he calls not death, but the end time, he has a simple hope for it. He hopes it's like going to bed. When you go to bed and really sleep well, you don't know anything. You're just gone. And if it's like that, he says, then that's not so bad at all. Beyond that, he can't imagine what it would be. And so nothing bothers him at this age. He doesn't feel cheated. He's had his life. He's seen more than most men ever will. He's been around the world several times, been to most places on the earth. And so, he says, he doesn't really have any regrets. 93 years, a Green Beret, a diver, a foreman, a father, a monk, a man who outlived his friends and made new ones out of the neighborhood children, a man who quit a 50-year habit to buy himself more time, and then used that time to sit quietly each evening with a single shot of whiskey and the hum of kids playing outside his door. His friends are all gone, but Bill isn't finished yet. And when you ask him whether his story is worth anything, he'll look you right in the eye and tell you the truth of it. It's worth a lot, my friend. It's 92 years of history. So what about you? Could you live the way Bill has lived? Keep your temper, keep good friends around you, and greet the end with that much peace? Let me know down in the comments. And if his story moved you, do yourself a favor and hit subscribe, because there are many more stories like Bill's still